Hello everybody and welcome to our Community Realm Network Harnessing Social Media webinar. In today's webinar, we're going to be taking a look at how you can use social media to promote your activities and achievements and how it can be used to increase your profile and put you at the heart of the community. Now, social media has provided itself to be such an important tool whilst we've all been working from home under the current conditions, keeping people and organisations in touch, showing off new and innovative ways of working and showing how we've all adapted in such an unprecedented time. Just a little bit about me if you don't know who I am. Nick Schofield, Comms and Marketing Manager at Community Realm Network, and I've been involved in social media pretty much since its inception. So we're talking way back in the early 90s with bulletin boards, then obviously with things like MySpace and the start of Facebook, Twitter, and then the absolute plethora of social media platforms that there are today. As Hannah mentioned earlier, today we'll also be joined by our friends from Community Rail Lancashire, Simon Clark and Karen Bennett, who are going to take you through some practical social media examples as they relate to community rails, and they have some great examples as well. There's a lot to learn there. So, why is that not working? Excuse me one moment. There we go, technical glitch. The topics that we're going to include in today's webinar are: why is social media an important tool for Community Rail? What are the most popular social media platforms? Some common social media questions that I get asked quite a bit. One of the important topics we'll be looking at is what should you actually be posting on your social media feeds? And then we're going to have a look at some social media quick tips and the all-important social media do's and don'ts. Also, to complement this webinar, don't forget to take a look at our social media guidance for Community Rail partnerships and groups. This is available on the reports, resources and tools section of our website, and it's also available as a you can click from the PDF of this presentation, which will be available in the next few days from this actual slide as well. Don't try and click it now because it won't go anywhere. I'm controlling the PowerPoint. So what we're going to do before we start is have a quick poll, just because we can and we've got the technology. So the question I'm going to ask here is, how many of you use social media for your community rail activities and what platforms are you using? We'll probably give that about 10 to 20 seconds. So Hannah, do your stuff.
There's a lot of frantic activity going on here. Ooh,
that's good.
It's close at the top. I'll hand back to you in a minute, Nick, when the polling finishes and you can
Thank you very much.
have a look at the results. Give it another 5 seconds or so. Okay, I'm just going to show the results.
Oh, so that's interesting. So, I mean, this is what I expected to see. So a lot of Facebook and Twitter usage. Very pleased with the Instagram usage at 37% as well. That is really good to see. Again, YouTube, smaller usage, but again, people are beginning to use that a lot more. LinkedIn, that's good to see. TikTok, I was expecting no users. And the others as well, other social media platforms, very interested to know what platforms you're using that are not on there. If you want to let me know by email so we can maybe do some webinars on those as well, please do so. So let's continue. So first topic we're going to be looking at is why social media is an important tool for Community Rail. So the first thing, social media is everywhere. There's an estimated 39 million social media users in the UK alone. So out of that figure, you can be sure that there's a few who are in tune with Community Rail and the Community Rail message. Social media is also a great way to promote what you do to a wider audience. That you can connect and work with your neighbours, like-minded people and organisations, both locally, nationally and internationally as well. You can share your stories, encourage followers to get involved, and you can build long-standing beneficial relationships with those people and organisations who may have been next door to you the whole time. And so by effectively using social media, you can raise your profile in the community, you can increase the number of participants in programmes and events, recruit and retain more volunteers, show funders directly what you've achieved with their help, and also developing relationships outside of the traditional face-to-face meeting. I'm sure that's something that we've all been trying to contend with over the last, is it 14 weeks now? It certainly is. So just to have a look, following on from the poll, I think we've established that there are 4 big popular social media platforms. We'll just take a little brief look at each of these big 4 here. So Facebook, obviously the ubiquitous Facebook, the widest reach of all the social media platforms, and it is reasonably completely intergenerational as well, with a wide range and demographic of users. Has some very useful functions such as group pages, and these are especially tailored for community group use, allowing you to promote events, and you can have invitee tracking with that. And you can also stimulate discussion on specialist topics on specialist pages you create within group pages. And you can also link to your website as well, if you do have one. Next up is Twitter. This one's my favourite. A very popular platform that's used extensively by community rail stakeholders. So that's CRPs, station groups, train operators, your network rails, and all our partnership organisations as well, such as Groundwork and Campaign for Better Transport. Now, Twitter, as you'll find, is a very fast-paced 280-character microblogging platform that puts you in touch with your stakeholders immediately. Next up is Instagram. I say it's reasonably new, but it's probably been going for quite a few years now, but it's still new to me. This is a social media platform that relies on the visual aspects of your activities. So it's all about your photographs. Now, Instagram is very popular amongst the teens and the early 20s, your young adults, for sharing images and short videos. But there is beginning to be more of a take up now with businesses and community groups as well, wishing to use it to try and attract a younger audience. And finally, another one of my favorites, because I spend way too much time on here, is YouTube, because sometimes a picture isn't enough. So with the improvement of video recording quality on our smartphones, you want a place to store your footage, and YouTube's an ideal platform for this as well. And it's usually the first place that people go to look for video clips. And we're beginning to use it a lot more frequently as well. So do remember to check out our Community Rail network channel on YouTube. If you just put in Community Rail Network, it should bring up the channel on the search. And of course, there are other social media platforms to choose from as well, like LinkedIn and TikTok. LinkedIn, obviously more business orientated, and TikTok is, again, something very, very new. And if you're looking at youth engagement, especially, TikTok's a great tool for that, because it is younger people more and more who'll be tending to use this. But today we're going to focus on the 2 sort of main social media platforms that are most frequently used in community rail, which is Facebook and Twitter. So without further ado, let's go and harness some social media. Excuse me whilst I take a sip of water. That's lovely. Right, so one of the most common questions I get asked by groups new to social media is, do we have to be on every platform? And the answer to that is, no, you don't. But here's some things to consider. Try and use at least one social media platform. And you can determine which is the best platform for you to use by asking your members of groups, friends, partners, and influencers. And by influencers, I mean media, train operator, and ourselves at Community Rail Network, people who can get out there and spread your message. Ask them what they're using. So you're looking at getting interaction on your posts, so choose a platform or platforms that already suit your needs. And from my experience, Facebook and Twitter are the easiest and the most direct to get your message out to a potential audience. There we go. So, should your names or your handles be consistent across social media platforms? Ideally, yes. It'll make it a lot easier makes it a lot easier to find or search for you using the platform search engines, or even via Google. Obviously, other search engines are available. I mean, there we go. And it also reinforces who you are as an organisation. So you want to make sure that there is something of your name, of your organisation within your social media name as well. Don't worry if you can't and all your preferred names have been taken. Try and at least include the location name in your handle, your social media name, wherever possible. And also, ideally, where you can, please avoid using abbreviations or acronyms. While they are convenient, they don't immediately portray your identity, and especially with a search result. And you want people to know that it's your post as soon as they see it. So one of the important things, just to start off with, is actually getting your image on social media right. Social media is as much, if not more so, a visual marketplace as well as an information communication service. So getting the initial setup stages of your social media account correct can assist you in your search for followers and also give it an instant visual flavour of who you are and what you do. So catching the eye of potential volunteers or partners, what you want to do here is try and reinforce your branding that you're actually using. So the first thing here is have a recognisable profile image. I was just about to point at the screen and I realised none of you could actually see that. So I'll just put the hands down here. So yeah, have a recognisable profile image. So here's an example from North Staffordshire CRP. I know Claire's on here today. Hello, Claire. Great example. And what they're doing here, they're showing their logo as their profile image. And all this logo is used in all their promotional materials, and there's also evident around the stations partnership operates within. And with these profile images, you want to try and keep these consistent across all your social media platforms as well, to ensure that followers and users instantly know that the post is from yourself. And it also further reinforces, I'm going to use the air quotes, your brand identity. And one thing I always try and emphasize with groups is, if you do a lot of work with communities, you want to emphasize that and show that on your profile image, on your header image, sorry. So that's the image that stands at the top there with all, and here it is, all the lovely people on it. So because you want to encourage more people to join in your activities, show that on your profile header. And remember, and this is the one thing I always try and stress as well, as many smiling faces as possible. I don't want to see the backs of people, which is great because you're showing things that are happening, but actually when you want to put a public face towards your profile, let's have lots of happy faces, because Community Rail is a very, very happy place. It certainly is indeed. And what I'm going to do post-event as well in some of the post-event materials is provide a social media style sheet, which will include all the relevant image sizes and profile image sizes for all these social media platforms that you may be using. It just makes it a little bit easier when you're thinking about what images to use and cropping them, etc., etc. So then, here's one of the really important bits. We've got you covered how you're looking visually online, but what about the messages you should be posting? So what I've done here is I've broken social media down into 5 post messaging types. And those are the call to action, look at what we've achieved, partnership building, signposting, and day-to-day. And what we're going to do now is look at each one of these post types in details and show a Community Rail related example for each post type, explaining why and what's in the post. So the first one we're going to look at is the call to action post. Excuse me whilst I just have another sip of water. So what would constitute a call to action post? Let's have a look at the anatomy of that. First, the call to action could be join our group. Why do you want to do that? Obviously, because you want to get more members. You want to get more people involved in your activities and more people who can spread the word about your work. Here's another call to action. Come to our event. Why do you want people to do that? Well, you want more visitors, don't you? And it's not just about visitors coming to the event, and which obviously creates more publicity for yourself, but also things like station galas where you may be inviting businesses to come along and provide a food service or something else, or they may be selling a product. You want more visitors there because it's going to mean more business for them as well. If you're going to do further events down the line, if they're making money there, they're more likely to come back. And a final call to action, and we do this all the time as well, is sign up to our newsletter. And why do you want to do that? Because you want to get increased coverage of all your activities and increased coverage of all the great work that all the groups who are attending here today do. So let's take a look at a Community Rail example. And here's one from Community Rail Lancashire. Excuse me whilst I just move my window here. There we go. That looks much better for me. So let's look at this. This is a call to action tweet done by Community Rail Lancashire, all about their Dales Rail programme. So the first thing, what's the call to action? They're asking, the Dales Rail season's been cancelled. So they're asking regular Dales Roll users to dig deep and come up with stories and anecdotes for create a virtual season. So all these stories will be going online and creating a virtual Dales Rail where people can read about how they got to their location and what they did whilst they were there. So what we've done here is we've put followers on there so they can. So we put the followers on there so they can help spread the news with retweets and shares. So here we've got ourselves, Northern Assist, and I always have trouble pronouncing this one, Nodrog Vlogs, which is a vlogger and blogger called Gordon, who's a great friend of Community Rail and has a very, very wide reach. And there's also a link here as well to direct you to the exact place you need to be to go and have a look at the story and also provide your anecdotes. We've got a striking image there to set the tweet out from the crowd, very Lord Kitchener, I do like that. And finally, we're including partners who can amplify the message. So as just mentioned, this is retweets and this is for shares, and this is just getting the message further out than the followers you already have. So on to the next one. Look what we've achieved. So what would a look what we achieved post may consist of? It could be, we've won an award. This is what we've achieved. And why do you want to do that? Why do you want to show that? You can tag the media in for coverage. So your local media or national media, or it could be sector specific, it could be rail, it could be third sector, it could be youth engagement. But you want everybody to know that you've won an award, and hopefully that may gain some extra media coverage for you as well. And we all like the media coverage just to promote your group and what you're doing. It could be, we finished this project. It could be a station project, it could be youth engagement project. And why do you want to do that? Again, it's for media coverage and also to let partners and potential partners know that you're working in these areas. And our third one is look at our station. So why do you want people to look at your station? You want to show awareness that there's a group working at the station and that they're doing some really, really good work. And it's raising community pride as well. One of the things we do tend to find is that when station groups do social media and traditional media around their work, it tends to have a knock-on effect for the rest of the communities as well, where other community projects may start up. It's all about really trying to reach out into your communities and get them involved with either your work or being a catalyst for other community work as well. So let's have a look at an example of this. So here's one from our new CRPs, the Heart of England. I don't know whether Julia's here today. If you are, Julia, hello. If you're not, probably won't see this. So let's have a look at this. So what's happened here is the Heart of England Community Rail Partnership are being involved in promoting the anti-trespass campaign Backtrack. I'm sure all of you who read Community Rail news or follow our social media will know of this absolutely fantastic competition that's been set up by Community Rail Education Network. So what we're showing here is who they've had the coverage from, which was the Herald newspaper. Letting partners know of the success so they can share that. So that's ourselves, West Midlands Railway, who are the particular TOC who work on with Heart of England, also the West Midlands Rail Executive and Warwickshire County Council as well. And you're showing your success. And the success here is that the news coverage that the Heart of England have managed to get to further promote this really, really good competition. Now I'm just going to single out this particular tweet just for a moment. While it's great to put newspaper or to show that you've been getting newspaper coverage, please don't, and I know this has been addressed for this particular tweet, but I think it's a great example to show, please don't take photos or photocopy and then use that as the image, as there will be copyright images or copyright issues, sorry, from newspapers. If you can, and there is an article online, please link to that article, then you'll be getting click-throughs to the newspaper, and the newspaper actually also benefits from that through the click-throughs with their advertising revenue. And at the moment, the local newspapers need every penny they can get. And the great thing as well, if you're linking to that coverage, you're producing more clicks for them. The more clicks you can produce for them, the more likely they may become to come back and do more stories on you in future, because you're driving, obviously, traffic to their website. So our next example is partnership building. So what is this? It could be a thank you to funders. And why would you want to do that? So you're building credit and trust. So you're showing funders that we've done this particular project and thank you for coming in and funding this for us. And hopefully this is, again, will lead to more funding in future as well. If you can show favourably that you promoted a particular funder or funding scheme, they're more likely to hopefully give you a little bit more funding in the future. What about engaging your train operating company? Why would you want to do that? Here's why, because you want to increase your reach. And also, again, the credit and trust issue works with this, but also increasing your reach. As Simon will be explaining later, the train operators have a huge social media reach, and that can be a real help to you if you're wanting to get your message out. And again, it's about tagging in your local media again, trying to build that partnership with your local media. So when you do send them a story, they're going to cover it, and that's going to increase your coverage. That's going to increase people knowing about the vital work and all the great projects and activities that you do. So let's have a look at an example here of partnership building. And here's one from Sussex Community Rail Partnership, and this is quite recent. Again, a very similar theme about the backtrack competition. So here we go. This is just saying this is great anti-trespassing movie made for the backtrack competition. They put a link in there to the YouTube channel or to the YouTube video. And it also brings the video up as well on the screen, so you can play that You can play that from the tweet. And what we're doing here, or what they've done, is tagging the partners so they can share the post. And it also shows that Sussex are very much involved in this competition as well and doing a lot of work to promote it. You can see the range of partners there that Sussex have put in there. So ourselves in there, Network Rail South East, Network Rail Wessex, 4 train operators, and the British Transport Police of Sussex as well, which I think is vitally important to include them in. And again, something visual, and there's a video there. Everybody likes to watch a video. So on to the next post type, signposting. So what is signposting? Well, it's essentially all tweets should be signposting. So one signposting could be, come and visit our website. Why do you want people to visit your website? Well, it could bring you more members. It could bring you more volunteers when people find out about the range of activity and work that you have going on. Or not necessarily a website, it could be a Facebook page as well. And that's something we'll come on to. But again, you're always trying to get people who are interested in community rail or want to get involved in community rail to a Facebook page or a site so they can find out more about the great work you're doing, and hopefully that increases your attendees to your activities. So you may have a group page on a Facebook page, and you want to signpost people to that. Again, that's more visitors to your page, but also they can get involved in the discussions. They may want to suggest an activity, or they may suggest something. There may be another station that needs some work, or they may have partners who they can put you in contact with as well for particular projects. And I know that Karen will be talking about this later on as well. And finally, again, sign up to our newsletter. Why do you want people to sign up to your newsletter? Because you want more coverage. You want people to be reading it, and you want to get your community rail message as far and wide as possible. So here's a signposting example from an organisation you may have heard of, the Community Rail Network, formerly known as ACORP. So what have we got going on here then? We've tagged our partners in. So for this particular piece, we are promoting our latest guidance, which was engaging local media. And that's on our reports resources page and our latest publications. So that particular piece of guidance was funded by Northern, sorry. So we've tagged them in. We've added an image. So this is the standard image that comes up on our page for our latest publications on our website. Now, one thing I would recommend as a quick aside here, if you do have websites, if you can share pages on there, ask your web developer to set it up so when you do share a page, you have this little framework that you're seeing on the bottom of my tweet with a picture and then some text below explaining where the link goes. All you have to do is just click on the picture of the link and away you go, you're straight into the website. And again, remember, include that picture, engage visually. There's a lot of tweets, there's a lot of posts out there, so you really want to stand out. And you notice with this one as well, kept all our branding so people know it's ourselves. And finally, here's the signpost. There it is. So adding link to website and the social media page. And finally, day to day. I really do enjoy doing these ones, and these are the ones I really enjoy reading on the social media feeds of all yourselves who are using social media. So what's day to day post? You can talk about your activity. So what if you're conducting activity on a day, you want to show people, you want to let people know what you're doing, where you're doing it, and why you're doing it. And then following on from this, you want to show your activity. We've all got cameras, smartphones with cameras on, and these days we've all got cameras with smartphones, which is actually probably more the case these days. So yeah, please do show your activity. Again, those smiling faces, we want to show people working and getting on some great activity. Or if you've got children or groups coming down, show them as well, and make sure if you are taking photographs of children, make sure you do have a disclaimer from the school or youth group as well, to make sure that you can use those images of children. And also it acts as an online journal as well if you're putting photographs on your social media feed. So if you wanted to write a newsletter and refer back to previous activities, or you're writing an annual report, or you maybe trying to remember something that might work in a funding bit, you can just quickly through your timeline, find a relevant tweet, and maybe copy some of the text out of that, and also use that particular image again if you know it's worked very well. And finally, on the day-to-day, join a hashtag, which is Twitter specific, and we're going to be looking at this a little bit later on. And joining a hashtag can increase your visibility. And as I say, we'll talk about this later on as well, just give you a bit more of a better flavour of what hashtags are. And those also work on Instagram, and people do use them for Facebook. I'm not entirely sure why, because I don't think people really search for hashtags on Facebooks, or not, maybe just me. So here's an example from the Poacher Line in Lincolnshire. So a day-to-day example. So this is what happened. Gone for a lovely socially distanced visit to the Botsford Friendly Garden. I always have trouble pronouncing that one as well. From the friends of Beeson Station, Heather and Nick have come down to stop by and see what's going on. And it's just day to day. Lots of smiling, well, 3 smiling, happy faces there, and a little bit of spade work activity there as well, because that's a blurred spade. Well, it is on my screen anyway. And we've tagged in, or Poacher Line have tagged in the supporting train operator as well, and also hashtag Botsford. So if anybody is Botsford, so if anybody is searching for anything that's happening in Botsford on Twitter, they shall be able to find that tweet. And again, just keep re-emphasizing that it's all about the happy, smiling faces. Make sure you get lots of happy people in your photographs. So those are the sort of 5 posting types. So what we're going to do here by the magic technology, and this should be quite interesting because we've only done it once and it went reasonably well. We're going to do a live post to show you how it all works. And we're going to do this on Twitter. So let me go to, I stop sharing there and go to a new share. And there we go. So we are on the Community Rail Network Twitter feed. As just to go over a few quick points here, you can see with our profile here, we have our Community Rail Network C logo, which is the shorter version of our Community Rail Network logo. So what we're doing here is a bit of a day-to-day post, also a bit of a partnership building post, and also a bit of a signposting post as well. A signposting post? Can you have a signposting post? A post is signposting. Yes, you can. So, in the true spirit of Blue Peter, this is one I prepared earlier. Today we're holding a social media webinar. And so put hello to attendees. So I had a quick look at the attendee list, and people who I knew were Kent from Purbeck, from North Staffs, from Worcestershire CRP and Esk Valley. And I know there's loads more of you, but we do have a character count limit on Twitter, so I try and put as many in as possible. So what I've done there is tell people what's going on, tagged lots of people in, and then I put a little bit of signposting in here. So don't forget to take a look at our last webinar on engaging local media. And as you'll see here, there's a link there. And also what you can see here is a nice image. So this is the branding and bits and pieces we're using for our engaging local media webinar. And there's also, you can click on the link here. And so it'd be great if you could all retweet that as well. If, for those of you on Twitter, or those of you setting Twitter accounts after this webinar, you can retweet and like. And as we're talking about the hashtag, here's the hashtag community rail. We'll look at that a bit later on. So when you're doing your community rail related tweets, don't forget to put the community rail hashtag in there, so it's visible to me, and I can obviously retweet those and promote them. If there's a news story there that I think is worthwhile, I can get in contact with you as well. So here's the tweet. Let's hit that tweet button, and we'll go to our profile just to show you what that looks like. And there we go. And there it is. That tweet's gone live, and we'll may revisit that as we go on through the webinar. So let's go back to the PowerPoint, and hopefully, yes, we're back on. Oh, it works. It actually works. It's brilliant. So what I'm going to look at now is just a few little hints and tips for the two popular platforms. So we're going to have a quick look at Facebook. So the great thing with Facebook posts, because it has a very interesting news feed. Posts can linger when liked or shared. So if you like a post, it'll show up on your feed, but it will also show up on the feeds of friends or you have on Facebook as well. So more people are going to see that. So if you see Facebook posts, make sure you can get people to like it, but also like posts from partners of the community rail organisations as well. And then that shares that message on your feed. Ideally, try and post every couple of days. If you can't do that, at least try and do it weekly, so it keeps your feed fresh and gives your followers a sense of activity, so that they know that the groups are all still active and there are things going on. If you go onto somebody's Facebook page or Twitter page and they've not posted since 2019, 2018, the likelihood is people aren't going to get in contact with you to either want to get involved in your activities or help promote and support them. I've usually found that an ideal posting time is usually mid-morning or early evening. This gives your post time to circulate. Mid-morning, people are having the coffee or getting up towards lunch when they might check the social media. We'll have a quick look at that. Early evening, when people are knocking off work, they've had their tea or dinner, evening meal, depending which part of the country you come from. We'll then have a quick look at their social media feeds before settling down for whatever's on in the evening, the EastEnders and the Coronation Streets, or whatever people watch. I have no idea whether I watch telly. And also, really vitally important, and this goes again with Twitter and all social media feeds, is don't forget to engage with the comments. Your replies will show on the feeds of your followers, and it also keeps you in people's minds. And if people are asking you a question, answer the question. There's nothing worse than sometimes posting something on social media and not getting an answer, because and we think, well, did this group really care about me, and do they really want me to get involved? Now, just one thing to stress here is you don't have to reply instantly. At least try and reply within 24 hours, but don't feel you have to be a slave to social media as well. It also works on your time. So do reply, but it doesn't have to be almost instantly. If you can, that's great. If not, don't worry about it. So a few Twitter tips for you, my favorite platform. And this is one about hashtags we've just spoken about. And there it is. I'm sure you've all seen this at some point, the old hashtag symbol. So people use the hashtag symbol there before a relevant keyword or phrase, like we've seen with Community Rail, in their tweets, categorize those tweets and also help them show more easily in the Twitter search as well. And if you click or tap on that hashtag or hashtag word in the message, that'll show you the other tweets that are included in that hashtag. And these can be included anywhere in the tweet as well. So obviously you've got a 280 character limit, rather than sometimes what I do is put community rail at the end of the tweet. Sometimes I may have community rail as a word within the tweet, in the copy of the tweet itself, and I'll hashtag that within the tweet. So let's have a look at some community rail examples, or some hashtag examples within community rail. This is all exciting. Let's see if we can get this one to work. Here we go. And we're going to share again. It does, the system works. So this is the Community Rail hashtag on Twitter. You see up here, Community Rail, Community Rail. So most of the things today, I've got 15 notifications I need to look at as well. So that went up from 3. So thank you very much for all your retweets. Good work. So today we've been promoting Dwell Time Press, who have launched issue 2 of their arts and mental health publication. Surrey Hills South Downs having a Zoom meeting this morning. So this is a bit more of the day-to-day. Just explaining what they're doing. A picture would have been nice there, but obviously when you're taking photos of Zoom meetings, there are some GDPR issues on there. It's Scenic Rail Britain. Hello to Alice Mannion. I know you're here today. So let me just move that cursor. So Alice is saying here, this is a little bit of a question. Did you know of our scenic rail lines supported by community rail groups? I'm discovering more of their work here. So this is signposting. This is signposting to the community rail website, done 2 hours ago, I think, in anticipation of this very webinar. Thank you very much, Alice. I'll slip you that $5 later. Here's Ros Holdsworth, who works with community rail at ScotRail. This is a bit of a day-to-day one as well, and also a little bit of a messaging. Back on the train for the first time in 17 weeks, attending training in Glasgow, and just explaining that, yeah, wear a mask when you're on the train. Obviously, from the 24th, wear one when you're going into a shop as well. We'll just quickly through a couple more of these. Here's Sussex Community Rail Partnership, and they are working with Trussell Truss and a local community centre rail delivery group. So you can see all these people here, all these organisations tagged in, and they're running a railway food collection point, like a food bank, Brighton every Tuesday. So they're telling you, it's like, this is the call to action. They're telling you where it is, when it is, the dates they are, and also a link as well. We've got a photograph in there, and we've got partners who they're working with, and another hashtag here, Charity Tuesday. So let's just take a quick look on that before we come on to the hashtags. So if you went to look at what was on Charity Tuesday, and we'll look at the latest tweets. Oh, my connection's so slow. So you'll see a lot of tweets from charity organisations here. And here we go. There they are, Sussex. And see there's a lot of other charity organisations here who are promoting the work that they do. So if you do work with charitable organisations on a Tuesday, tweet some Charity Tuesday stuff. Right, let's try and get back onto my PowerPoint. This is all going alarmingly smoothly. Right, next, some social media do's and don'ts as well. So I'll start with the do's. So with social media, always be clear and concise about what you want to say. And especially with Twitter, it's all about trying to really refine that message and get it down to 280 characters. But also on Facebook as well. One of my greatest bugbears is the too long didn't read post, where people will write at least 4 or 5 paragraphs. There's no need. You should be able to get your message out there in at least a paragraph, but a couple of sentences. Really make sure that you can get that message out there. Again, adding those images to stand out from the crowd. You want people to see your activity. You want your post to be eye-catching. And again, signpost wherever possible with a web link or link to a Facebook page or another social media page or whatever. Engage, always engage. Replies to posts, sharing posts, retweeting, liking, all the good stuff. And don't forget to tag your partners for shares and retweets as well to really get that message out far and wide. And some social media don'ts as well. This is one of my greatest bugbears on social media, is just posting a web link, and especially on Twitter. I get to see this, and actually it's more my some of the people I follow on my personal feeds rather than the work account, which is good. So well done, everybody. You'll see somebody who will just post a link to Instagram, so it'll have instagram.com/ and a load of numbers, or the same with Facebook. People aren't going to engage with that. People aren't going to engage with a post that just has a link and no context. Always add some context in there. And again, please add a photograph. Next one. Please don't post criticism of your train operator or the other organisations that you work with. Do keep that to your emails. There's nothing that can really grind more than somebody and saying, "Oh, my train operator," and tagging them in, didn't do this, this, or this organisation hasn't done this, this, or this that they may have promised. Well, yes, that's fine, but please do keep that to an email. That needs to be personal, because if you start bringing these sort of things into the public, organisations and train operators aren't going to look on you too favourably in the future. And following on from that as well, please don't post personal political opinion or other personal grievances on your CRP or station accounts. You may have a particular political standpoint. There's a tongue twister for you for a Wednesday, or a point of view, and that's great. But nobody needs to see it on your work accounts, because again, you may be attracting people who have different views, and that will put them off. So yeah, take that to your personal one, like I do. Well, that's mainly for cricket or football. So finally, if you're needing a specialist piece of advice or guidance, I'm here to help. All my details are on there. So I'm nicholas@communityrail.org.uk. You can also find me hanging around our social media feeds. So on Facebook @CommunityRail, also on Twitter @CommunityRail. So keeping those names consistent. Obviously, I'm on my mobile at the moment, so please don't try and ring my office number, because you won't be getting any reply unless the plants have taken over, which they might just have done. And I can see Hannah there, so I know she's cheering me along. Finally, this is the final slide before I hand over to Simon, is if you want to book a Zoom social media session, or even just a session on marketing and communications, more than happy to do that for you. So we can have a half hour or a 1 hour one-to-one on your social media or your comms or marketing needs. I can tailor that especially to yourself and give you some practical examples to get started. And you can book in by emailing me, nicholas@communityrail.org. So thank you very much for listening. I don't know whether we want to do some questions now or hand over to Simon. Do we have any questions from anybody? Let me stop this share as well. There we go.
Hi, Nick. Thank you for that. That was great. Yeah, we've had a couple of questions coming in, which I think we can just pick up on those now before handing over to Simon. Okay. So let me just go to the top of these. I think it was in response to the poll earlier on. There were a few people who had clicked other platforms that they use. Charlie Runcie has mentioned nextdoor.co.uk, which isn't one I'd heard of. I'm not sure if you're familiar. It described itself as a neighbourhood hub, and Kelly Wood at Purbeck said she's found that a really useful way to engage with volunteers. So that's nextdoor.co.uk is something people might want to have a look at.
I'm writing it down.
Question from Piers Elias, just asking if you have any tips on how to deal with people who don't have very good manners using Twitter, who are rude, aggressive, or post offensive messages on Facebook. Is it better to engage them or ignore?
Right, I mean, that's a very good question. I can come from both sides of the fence on this one. I would say, and especially on Twitter, block. Don't engage with people. There's a lot of people who tend to do this. The contrarians will come on and they will suck your time, because that's what they want to do. They want to try and keep engaging you again and again and again and asking further questions. So on Twitter, I would maybe block them or at least mute them. And again, you do have that functionality on Facebook as well. And also, when people are posting on your page, you do have the ability to actually hide their post. So they can still see it, but nobody else who visits your page can. And again, Pierce, if you want to have a further chat about that later on, so I can show you how all that works, not a problem at all. Give me a shout.
Thanks, Nick. Another quick technical one from Charlie Runcie, just asking, why do photos get reversed on Twitter, and how do you solve that problem? I'm not sure if that's something that you've wrestled with.
Hi, Charlie. Good question. Again, good question, and something that I've never actually come across. That's really interesting. I don't have an answer for that, because I've never seen that happen. Again, if you want to have a chat with me over the phone or a Zoom or an email, please do get in touch, and show me exactly how that works, because I say I've never seen it. So yeah, but we'll have a further chat about that, and I can maybe work out what's happening there.
One more quick practical one. Andy Harrowell says he's been getting to grips a bit with social media during lockdown, making good use of that time, and he just wonders, do capital letters make any difference in your handles?
Oh, no then. That's a good question as
They're putting you on
well.
the spot here.
No, these are really, really good questions. And again, this work, I can sort of relate this back to hashtags as well. Because the handles have to be a continuous stream of characters. What we've done with Community Rail, we've capitalised the C and we've capitalised the R. I think that just makes for a little bit better reading. Some groups who have spaces in their names may use an underscore, and I think that worked well maybe 10 years ago, but I think a lot more people now are tending to capitalise individual words rather than using an underscore. And I think that it scans better as well. And also for people who are wanting to tag you into a post, I mean, a lot of people can't find an underscore on the keyboard. I know I certainly can't on the 3 laptops I've got going at the moment. I don't know where it is on my Mac. No idea.
Thanks, Nick. I'm just conscious that we should move over to Simon. There was a question from Lucy Lomax, which I'll bring in at the Q&A at the end.
Okay.
And a couple of others are queued up in the Q&A. Charlie Rance has just come back in terms of that reversed photos. He said to have a look at the ScotRail photo you showed us. So now you're out of the hot seat, maybe you can have a look and see if you can figure out what's going on.
I know why that is. Because they use this. It's because Ros used the selfie camera, and people's selfie cameras on some phones will sometimes do it in the mirror image. Mine doesn't, so I don't know how to change that on individual phones. If it's an iPhone, I can help you out. If it's Android, ask somebody with technical knowledge.
All right, we'll leave the questions there for now. Plenty more to come back to, and ready to hand over to Simon Clark.
Right, I'm hoping you can all see that screen has now come on.
We can, Simon. Yep, your screen's shared.
Excellent. Some of those questions were really good. I did know the answer to the reverse picture one. It is to do with mirror images, and it does that to me on my Android phone. So it is relatively straightforward to cure. Anyway, thanks for Nick's introduction to social media. And what I'm going to do now is have a look at why Community Rail Lancashire uses Twitter as a way of communicating. We're going to look at some examples of what we've tweeted, and we're going to see how well they've performed. What we've been doing during the COVID lockdown is looking for education-themed things that children can do at home. And we've got 2 successful tweets for this, including a puzzle and a doodly. If people aren't sure what a doodly is, it's software to create animations that can be accessed online. The first we did is back in May, was a puzzle called Feathered Fun. This is the tweet that we put out, sort of saying, have a go at this. See how many of these ornithological conundrums you can work out, which is a good mouthful for whatever day it was. And you can see that we've tagged in a good number of people, and there are also some hashtags in there. And of course, to keep Nick happy, we've put a nice picture in. And this achieved 7,581 impressions. That means it went off to 7,581 people. Doesn't mean they all looked at it, but it means that it went off to them. We had 392 engagements, which means that those actually looked at it and possibly shared or retweeted. And 218 media engagements. That means they've actually clicked on the image, which will probably help them to do the identification of the birds. The second was a doodly that was created by Katie from our team. And hi, Katie, I believe you're in the panel today. And it was called Family Collage. And this one, again, is pitched at things for children to do. So this was the actual tweet that went out, and it's saying that we've done a short animation. It tells you where you can go and look for it, which is on this bit here. And again, quite a few tweets at Community Rail, at Northern Assist, at Nodrog Vlogs, at Casabel, and some hashtags. We snatched an image from the little video that was created, and this one had 2,511 impressions, 32 engagements, and 12 people clicked on the image. You can then use Google Analytics to chase through your website to see how many people actually went and visited the page. Now those two tweets, or what I would call things to do when we're pitched at children, but probably via their parents, because they need parental involvement. And the next two are slightly different and not necessarily pitched at children, and fall into the look at me and a call to arms categories, and these were pitched at specific audiences. The first would be those that would appreciate the image, and the second one is those that we thought would be able to help. So the first one is a piece of graffiti that appeared, and it was all to do with COVID, but it appeared on one of the quietest stations in the northern area, of Moss Side Station. So of course we stuck two photographs into this one of the actual artwork and one to show that it was at Moss Side. And now this one had 18,600 impressions, 1,155 engagements, and a staggering 891 people clicked on the images. So this was a very good result. Now the next one, and Nick has mentioned this in his bit of the presentation, this is the Dales Rail call to action one. This is the Dales Rail Need You, and you can see again in the actual tweet we've put in various people, and there's a link to the website as where you can go and get the information. This had 1,438 impressions, 47 engagements, and 21 media engagements. So that's the clicking on the actual image, which I can understand why that's reasonably low. Now this tweet is still ongoing and is being retweeted because we still need that help. In fact, last time it went out, it was Dales Rail still needs you. So why do we tag specific people and use certain hashtags? We use some tags such as Community Rail and Ellison Printing because they are our friends and we think or we hope that they will retweet for us. We use some such as @Northern Assist because they are our sponsors. And we use hashtags such as #CommunityRail because it's common across the industry, and #KeepSafe because it's appropriate for the time. But why would we use the two tags @CommunityRail and @Northern Assist? Well, it is straightforward maths. We have 839 followers. So if I do a tweet, that's how many people it goes to. But if Community Rail Network retweets for us, they have 2,435 followers. So that goes out to that many more people. And Northern Assist have 116,892. So it's basically maths. If either of those retweet, it makes it very, very simple. It gets to a much bigger audience and you have more chance of more involvement. That's probably just about it for me. So that's thanks for listening. A nice little smiley face, and you can ask any questions later on in the Q&A session, and please get tweeting.
Thank you very much, Simon. Some great informative little bits and pieces there, all related back to what we've talked to, some great practical examples, and here's some more fantastic practical examples from Karen Bennett. Take it away, Karen.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, and thanks, Simon. So yeah, I'm going to go through some of my examples of how I use social media. As Nick mentioned earlier, obviously there's lots of different platforms, and I would always say choose your audience. Different platforms can be used by different groups of people. I use Twitter mainly to converse with talks, schools, other people in the industry. I find a lot of adoption groups are on Facebook, Instagram's maybe where we engage with young people, TikTok's definitely where the young people are. I've only just opened an account. I'm definitely not down with the kids enough yet to start making videos of me doing dances and all sorts, but if we want to get more young people involved in Community Rail, that's the place to be. And obviously I've got a LinkedIn account which I use for a more professional way to sort of like connect with other people in the industry. So on Twitter, we've got our Community Rail Lancashire account. I've also got my own account, which I use in a semi-professional way. So my Twitter shares all the things I do in my role and a little bit about my sort of home life as well, just so people sort of understand who I'm all about, pictures of my little boy and my pets and things. So on Twitter, I like to share events live with talks. Northern are our key sponsors, so often when I take groups out, school groups, we've often got tickets from Northern. So whenever I take a group out, I always say thanks to Northern for travel. Sometimes it might be LNER or another talk. I always bring the Community Rail Network in. So thanks, Nick, for giving us some love when we're out and about. You always retweet our stuff. If I'm taking a group out, I often go to the Railway Museum or the Science Museum. I always tag them into a tweet if we've been somewhere on a trip, because I think if they get some good feedback, they're likely to retweet it. And like Simon says, they've got a lot of followers, and then news of our work goes further and wider. Similar with schools, if I've got a school I'm taking out and I know they've got a Twitter handle, I'll tag them in the tweet. If a school's got a free day out on the railway and we share that news and they share it on their Twitter, other schools that are linked to that school will think, hang on, I wouldn't mind a bit of that. And, you know, they might try and get in contact with us. I use Twitter to make contacts with other people in the rail industry and also to get ideas for the groups. So this slide just shows a tweet that I sent when I took a group out on a trip. So I took a primary school from Bradford to the Railway Museum. The majority of the children I took out had never been on a train before, so obviously this was a really exciting day for them. The conductor was fab. He was really lovely with the children. He went and did a personalised announcement for the children. So, you know, when he told everybody what the next stop was, he said, oh, we've got St Oswald's Primary School on the train today and they're off to York, and they all cheered, and it was lovely. So obviously I tagged Northern in, tagged the school in, we're off to the Railway Museum, and Northern retweeted that. So all of their followers got to see that, and as you see, we got over 20,000 impressions. It got about 60 likes, and it was a really nice tweet. As you can see in the picture there, you can see the conductor clearly. I've blurred out some of the children. It's always important when you're taking a school group out to get the photo permissions of the children you're taking. As an ex-teacher, obviously I know how important it is to make sure that, you know, you're allowed to take photographs of the children you're taking. I would say get that permission before you go on the trip. So get your form sent back to you saying that, you know, the school give permission for such and such children to be in the photos. If there's any children that can't be in photos for any reason, then you know not to take pictures of them or keep them at the shop, and then that avoids having that sort of confusion on the day. So the next tweet I'm going to show you is when I took a group of young women up to Hitachi. Myself and Felicity from the Bishop line took some engineering students up to see the Azumas being made. We got travel from LNER, obviously Hitachi showed us around, but I also sort of shared that with some of my contacts in the industry. So some of you might know who Lucy Pryor is. Lucy has got so many contacts in the rail industry. She's really good at linking up different people. Oh, Karen's doing a project on that, here's her details. So it's always good to have these allies on your side, because again, if they retweet something, all of their followers will see your work. So obviously that was a really popular tweet. We got 44 likes on that, and we got the message of what we're doing far and wide. As I said, I use Twitter a lot to kind of get ideas. I find it really useful to find out what the people are doing. So this tweet here just shows when Network Rail opened their STEM lab. So Network Rail have got a lab in Milton Keynes where young people can go to do some really exciting activities to kind of inspire them to look at careers in the railway industry. So obviously I follow Lydia. I saw what they were doing with the STEM lab. I messaged her saying, you know, this is great, can we chat about it sometime, because I'm trying to do a project with virtual reality headsets and getting young people interested in STEM careers. And she said, yeah, great. We had a phone call, we chatted about the project, she's inviting me down to Milton Keynes when I can go. So it's a really good way to make new contacts and also to get ideas. If you're an adoption group or a CRP, you can often find out what people are doing on the actual day they're doing it. I know the Community Rail Network are really good at putting case studies together and sharing news of what people are up to in newsletters, but Twitter's a really good way of finding out about what's happening when it's actually happening. So at Community Rail Lancashire, we do have an Instagram account. It's relatively new. We wanted to get Instagram to kind of get in touch with more younger people. Like I said earlier, our younger people are not likely to engage with us on Twitter and maybe not Facebook. So we wanted to go where they were. So we've set up a CRL Live Instagram account. And like I say, the main purpose is to connect with young people. our Instagram account, what we're trying to do with that is not to be too much about classes of trains and what's going on the railway, but more what the railway can do for opportunities. So if you see the pictures, we've got lots of young people enjoying days out by the lakes, by the seaside, trips to cities, lots of young people enjoying themselves and using the railway to get there. Hashtags are really important for us on Instagram. We don't necessarily have a lot of followers from young people currently. So what we like to do is use hashtags that are quite current. Maybe they mimic a certain day. And then we can get young people finding our posts when they're looking for other things. So for example, the picture here on the right is from our Women in STEM event. We put the hashtag Each for Equal, which was the tagline for International Women's Day this year. So any young person that was interested in International Women's Day could have looked for that hashtag and our photograph would appear. So that's kind of like one of our strategies on Instagram to try and get more young people interested in what we're doing. Like I said, it's relatively young. It's not as well established as our other social networks. It's just a bit of a learning curve for us at the minute to see how we can get more engagement through that. Community Rail Lancashire does have a Facebook account. I don't really do much to do with that. That's more Simon's bag. But I have used Facebook in my role recently with the backtrack competition. So some of you might have seen that a couple of CRPs have put together an anti-trespassing competition. We wanted to get the message out there about the competition, get more people interested, inform young parents, inform the parents about it. And we thought Facebook's a really good one to go to for the parents. To tell them about trespassing. So we've got a page on there which we send out information and videos, but one of the tools we found really useful on Facebook has been the boost post. So it is something you have to pay for, but it's not that expensive. So for 5 days our video of how to enter was sent to a lot of random people on Facebook, not necessarily people who follow us. And at the end of those 5 days, we had 2,200 views. So those were people who didn't necessarily have an interest in railway or trespassing or things to do with young people, but it would have appeared in their feed, and then they had the option to sort of follow up with the competition. So those are our ones. So thank you for listening. I'm going to pass you back over to Hannah now. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Karen. Just checking you can hear me, can't you? Great. That was fantastic. I'm just quickly scanning the chat and the Q&A. So we can now just come back to a few more questions. I've got one question from Stephen Slight. So this is about what's the difference between followers and following on Twitter? There's a lot of terminology, a lot of jargon around social media, so it's always helpful to kind of break that down a bit.
Right, so followers, so that's people who are following your feed. So people who are interested in you will hit the follow button or the like button on Facebook, and so everything that you post will appear on your particular feed. So that's followers. Following people is what you do, so it's the reverse of that as such. So if you were interested in Community Rail Network, for instance, which I hope you are, you would hit that follow button. So every time you look at your aggregated feed, you will see when we post something, that will appear. And again, that's the same on Facebook as well. If you like, or you can follow on there as well without liking, everything that a particular organisation or a person posts will come up on your feed. I don't know if anybody else wants to add a little bit more to that.
Yeah, I was going to say actually, oh, it's kind of a bit of feedback. I think sometimes it's really useful, when you follow someone on Twitter, often you'll get a follow back. It depends. Maybe some celebrities I follow don't follow me back, but in my professional world, if you follow a Community Rail partnership, it's likely they'll follow you back. Something we're doing at the minute with Backtrack on our Instagram page is I am following as many young train spotters as I can. Clicking follow on their Instagram page so they will follow us back and find out about the competition, because otherwise they're not going to find us. So sometimes I suppose it's quite a good way to target who your followers could be.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Good idea.
Yeah.
And a similar question I mentioned that Lucy Lomax had asked earlier to come back to. The difference between @ and hashtag. it's another terminology thing, and it's one of those basics that a lot of people just assume everyone knows, but I have to say I'm never quite clear either.
Yeah, that's understandable. I think it's one of those things that I've been using, certainly Twitter, for way too long now, way longer than I'd like to admit, certainly. So the difference between, so an @ so that will appear at the start of a individual or organisation's profile name. So we are Community Rail. So our profile name is @CommunityRail. And if you're wanting to include them in a tweet or a Facebook post, you will put @ and that organisation's name on there. If you're wanting to tweet directly to somebody as well, you can put the @ at the start of the message. So say you want to tweet ourselves directly, you will put @CommunityRail and then put the message in there. So that comes into my mentions, so I can see that, but it doesn't necessarily appear as something general on your feed that your followers will see. So only followers of yourself and Community Rail Partnership will see that particular tweet. Hashtags, again, something a little bit different. So they're more topic areas. So let's say we have #Community Rail. You click on that and you'll see a lot of tweets from seen Community Rail Partnerships, station groups, and also our partner organisations as well. So that's more of a topic aggregator, shall we say. I'm sure there's a better way to explain that.
Right.
We've been using a few, Simon, haven't we, in terms of our special weeks, you know, like Community Rail Lancashire, like, you know, we've had this chocolate week, or it's the Samaritans month. If you're using hashtags that are general outside of the railway industry, you're likely to get maybe some more interest of people who are following those hashtags rather than you, and you might get some extra followers that way.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. Okay, moving on now to a question more of diplomacy. So it's Peter Whiteman, I think it was, and he's just talking about publicly. It's good, obviously, to maintain a united front and not criticise your train operator. He's just asking, is there any advice on how to walk that tightrope as a rail user group where members have common concerns?
Again, I think with that, it's if you have concerns, I would maybe address these directly with the organisations you have concerns about first. Again, without being able to see any specific examples, it's difficult really to make an absolute judgment on that. My first part of call would be to try and have some email or telephone contact with the particular organisation or individual involved and take it down that route. Again, if you wanted to engage with, especially train operators, it's best not to take that to social media, because it can actually start a bit of a bun fight as well, where other people get involved, and that can spiral out of control. So I always do try and recommend keep it to emails or telephone calls. Try not to keep it to personal contact rather than social media contact.
Can I jump in here? I'm sorry, you can't see me. It's Hazel in the background, everybody. Can I just suggest that we actually put that question to Andy Harrowell, who's with us from South Western Railway, just to get the top perspective. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Andy's happy with that.
Andy, are you with us?
Andy to unmute, so hopefully he's with us. Are you there, Andy?
I am, assuming you can hear me.
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question? I happen to be sat on my phone searching hashtags. You were talking that one.
So did you hear the question, Andy?
I didn't know, I'm afraid, Hazel.
So it was criticism of TOCs is a no-no for station friends groups, but is there any advice on how to walk the tightrope as a rail user group where members have common concerns? So how would you advise that, how to approach a TOC, and what is the best way to get the best results?
It is quite an interesting tightrope to walk, I guess. And maybe it's something that the user group would want to sit down with their local contact at the operator and say, what's the best way for us to do this? I mean, I don't know, and maybe that others on the panel can advise better, that sort of you're kind of collecting those criticisms or issues privately, so that then you can air them, as Nick was saying, via email or in another way that isn't just a Twitter session that's sort of build it up with, this is a problem, that's a problem, yeah, there's another problem.
Thanks, Andy. I mean, that's about taking the, you know, the emotion out of things as well, isn't it? And coming from a, you know, as professional a standpoint as possible, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I mean, we all have those days where we step off the train and kind of go, ah! And there will be those people, I'm sure, that the kind of keyboard warriors that will want to be out there and putting things on social media. And I suppose as a Rail user group, and as any form of group, you're not going to do yourself any favours if you're allowing that emotion to stream straight off to the operators. It's kind of, I suppose, that balance of keeping yourself with a level of, yes, we take everything in and we constructively push it back out.
And just to follow on from that as well, I think if you are going to, as a Rail user group, actually putting any messaging out there, I would be maybe messaging on positive outcomes rather than anything else. It's trying to keep things as positive as possible. Yeah, so if you need to tweet something, or it's either progress of something that's going on, if there's an issue, just to tweet what the progress is. And then if there's been a positive outcome, you know, then that's something you obviously want to celebrate as well and let people know. If there's been a negative outcome, then again, it's something you may want to keep within the group to start off with, and then discuss with your train operator.
Thanks, Nick. And thanks, Andy, for coming on with that perspective.
Thank you, Andy.
I'm just conscious of the time. We're at 3:45, which is our official end. But if people are happy, there are a few questions that we could cover for another 5 minutes if people would like to stay on. One quickly, Alexa Stott has actually shared a helpful tip. She said, in another social media workshop, she picked up that there's the link shortening website Bitly, which is really useful on Twitter and also on other social media platforms. So that might be something people are aware of. Nick, you can probably explain the technicalities of it better than me, but it's just about reducing the number of characters basically in a link, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it could be when Twitter changed to their, because it used to be 140 character limit, and then they extended it. They still didn't need an edit function, but we'll not go into that. It's another subject for another time. Yeah, so bitlinks are there. You can go to bit.ly and then put your big link into their little machine, and this will come up with create a shorter link. So there's actually less characters in it so it doesn't contribute so much towards your character count. Although this has changed in maybe the last 18 months with the introduction of the bigger character count, and also when you put a link in there into Twitter as well, it can sometimes actually shorten it, so it doesn't always contribute to your overall character count on there. It's not an exact science. The other thing with bitlinks as well is that if you are bitlinking, it's not going to display that social media card that I showed you on the commuter rail post, where it has that image and that little bit of text at the bottom, and those are specifically done within your own website or our own website, and bitlinks won't facilitate that. But in general, I think for Twitter, if you are struggling for characters and even putting the URL link in is causing you to go over, then bitlinks may be an answer for that. And again, if anybody wants to know a little bit more about that, send me an email, or we'll have a Zoom, have a telephone conversation. I can discuss this further. I don't know do you use those at Community Rail Lancashire, or do you just use straight links?
I used to use them. I used to use a thing called bit.do, which then Twitter stopped accepting that and wouldn't let you tweet. So I tend just to put the full link in, and it automatically shortens it and maybe only uses up sort of 2 or 3 characters. You still seem to have loads of characters left, so I would just go with a full link.
Okay, good point.
Thank you. 2 more quick questions that were in the list, quick fire. First of all, is there a benefit to including a geographic location as a hashtag in Facebook posts? And then the other question is, are there any hints and tips for gaining followers when you start from scratch? So hints and tips for starting from scratch, and a benefit to including a geographic location as a hashtag.
I mean, Facebook's an interesting one for hashtags, because I, over the past couple of weeks, did chat with friends who use Facebook a lot and asked them, do you put hashtags in for some of the businesses that you run? And they never actually do. But again, for Twitter, it can work because people do tend to search by hashtag. And if you do put your geographical location in, so I'm in sunny Morley today. Actually, it's not that sunny. So if I was doing something on my personal account that related to Morley and I wanted to get people involved in something, I would put anybody in hashtag Morley. And if people in Morley are searching for local bits and pieces that are happening around the town on Twitter, they can click that hashtag and see, all right, there's a little music event happening. Oh, we might go and see that. Well, let's contact with the person who's organising it. In terms of the gaining new followers, again, there's no exact science to it. I can remember when people used to buy lots of followers, and that was really bad. So you get a new group and have like 30,000 followers instantly, and it looks false. So do try and grow them organically. And again, the way of doing that is atting ourselves in Community Rail Network, your train operating partners and other partners you may have, so they can again do the retweets for you. The more the retweets, the more exposure you have, and the more people are also likely to follow you. And don't forget, on all your promotional materials, to have those little social media signs and your social media name on there as well, and on your website, on everything you do, on your email signatures. Make sure you have your social media handles on there so people can get in there straight away. Just ask Simon and Karen, because obviously they're coming from the other side of it.
Yeah, I think in terms of the followers, like if you go on to the Community Rail Network's Twitter page and you see who's following Community Rail Network or who they're following, you'll see a long list of maybe CRPs, individuals, and you can click to follow them. So you might see all the CRPs from the UK and you can click, follow. Hopefully they'll follow you back, as we said earlier. And then if you go on to say, like, if you find our page that way, you could then find people who follow Community Rail Lancashire, and you can tell who's kind of in this industry and who might be interested and who might not. Another one that might be a good one, mentioning the geographical location, is if you've got Twitter pages for local areas, like, you know, I tag in some Bradford groups if I'm doing anything local with Bradford schools, they're likely to retweet what's going on, and then people in the community might begin to follow you as well.
Thanks.
If I could just quickly add to that, if I was doing a Twitter story about Accrington, I would do a tag, so I'd do @Northern Assist, then hashtag Accrington, so that you've got that it's Accrington Station that belongs to Northern Assist, and you get both ends of the stick. Then you get a decent amount of chance of a retweet, and you also get people will go and look at what else is going on in Accrington.
And just a quick one there that Paul, our good friend at Community Rail Network, Paul Webster, hello Paul, I know you're there somewhere out in the ether, has also recommended, this is on our Twitter feed, so I've just retweeted that, so if you follow us on Twitter, you should be seeing that in the next couple of seconds. I'll just bring this up, here we go. What Paul put together is Twitter lists, is another thing as well, and he's put together a list of all the Community Rail partnerships who have Twitter accounts here. So if you find this tweet on your feed, obviously you need to follow us, and then click on this list here. I'm supposed to have fibre broadband. We've got all our Community Rail partnership members here. And you can start, oh, there's some I haven't followed there. Just click on those. If you follow them, hopefully they'll all start following you back as well. So there's plenty, there's 77 on there. So you could get yourself 77 instant followers. Oh, well, there's another one I got as well.
That's a very timely example, Nick. There was a quick question had come in from Piers, which may be connected to that. So he said there's a list of CRPs which is easy to follow and easy on Twitter. Is there an easy way in Facebook to find that similar list?
Oh no.
Just a case of going through and searching for people.
Unfortunately, with Facebook, it's quite a good platform because it has a lot of functionality, but I always find it a little bit fiddly to use for that sort of thing as well. I do like the simplicity of Twitter, hence why I've probably over milked it today. Again, with Facebook, I think it's just a case of popping those names into the search bar and then bringing up their relevant pages and following them. Again, I don't know if anybody from CRL has anything to add on to that.
I wouldn't know how to do that.
I would agree. I would agree with Nick. It's not easy to do. There's no big list. You've just got to basically think, oh, who do I need to ask about? Ask it and then follow them.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it for the questions now. Just one little thing to add that came in from Michael Bedford at Friends of Radcliffe, going back to the question that Andy Harrowell came in on. He just said that they sometimes get criticism on their Facebook page from the general public, for example, about disabled access at a station. So he said they feed that through, pass it on to the train operator to help just keep that information flowing.
Absolutely.
So, okay, great.
Okay, just have a quick follow up on what you've just said there as well, and that's exactly the right way to deal with it. Is to pass those, if there are concerns in your rail user group and the concerns about the rail service, and obviously do pass those on to the TOC, and also let the person who's posted that know that you're doing that as well. So it's not just you passed it on, but they know you've passed it on as well, so they can see that something happening. And also, when you do that, it shows there's engagement there, so they're more likely to engage with you in the future.
Anna, can I just come in as well, please? Chris Morgan just made a point earlier, and I've been communicating with him in the Q&A separately. And he said the poll suggested the majority use Facebook. The webinar seems to be a tweet commercial, which you mentioned, Nick. Now, my take on that, and I answered him and I said, I think the message is that Twitter is more productive in terms of engagement, I think. Hence, harnessing Twitter use would be good. So what would you suggest? So if a lot of, say, station friends groups just use Facebook, is it a case of getting in touch with you, Nick?
Yes, yeah.
Is there a way that maybe we can utilise something where we can set up how to get Twitter set up, how to effectively use it? And I also mentioned Hootsuite to somebody else as well, who said that they can't use a phone. They find it very fiddly trying to use a phone. They use the desktop, because Hootsuite is a platform that can link Facebook and Twitter. You can do it from a desktop, and you can schedule posts and things, can't you, as well?
You can, yes, yeah. I mean, actually, there's Hootsuite and there's TweetDeck that's specialist for Twitter. Facebook also actually already has its own scheduling tools in. And what I would recommend is, personally, this is what I do, and again, this might not necessarily be pertinent for all groups, is I slightly tell you my messaging slightly differently for Twitter and Facebook. So right. Twitter is very much more direct, and Facebook, while I've just said don't put paragraphs and paragraphs, I can be a little bit more wordy on Facebook, so you've got a lot more characters to go. So if you want to add an extra little bit of detail in there, then Facebook's great for that. But again, as stated at the end of my little piece, if you want to have a telephone conversation, email, or a Zoom session on either Facebook or Twitter, or even LinkedIn, Instagram, or YouTube, maybe not TikTok though, because I'm way too old for that. And whatever the latest platform that might come in is, yeah, do get in touch. I'm more than happy to help you out with that. And again, it'd be a learning experience for me with some of these things as well.
So the message there generally is to ideally keep Facebook and Twitter separate and deal with them in a separate way.
That's what I do. It might not be relevant for all groups. It's very difficult to really give a definitive answer on that. And again, with both platforms, we could do a half-day webinar on each of them, on all the little vagaries and foibles of it. This is just to give a broader outline, but I'm more than happy to answer questions post-webinar in whichever way you want to do that, to really get to the nub of the things you really want to do on social media.
Okay, Nick.
Could I just answer a quick thing there? If you've done a big event and you've taken 60 photographs, you're going to get 4 on Twitter, unless you do multiple tweets, whereas on Facebook, you can add all 60. So, there is advantages to Facebook, and it's, as you say, you can have a bit more of an essay on Facebook, whereas Twitter, you are short and snappy.
Yes.
Right. Thank you. I think we'll start to wrap things up there. So thank you, everyone, all of our attendees, for those questions, and to our panelists for your responses. It's been really interesting, and I'm sure everyone's learned a great deal today. Hopefully you're all feeling a lot more confident about using social media and building it into your activities and communication strategies if you weren't already using it. So that brings us to a close, and before we go, I just want to say a couple of quick thank yous. First of all, to our panelists, Nick, Simon and Karen, really appreciate all of your fantastic insights, that advice and your examples. So that's much appreciated. And to Hazel, you've been supporting in the background, behind the scenes, and thanks for coming in as well on those few points. And to everyone who's joined.